Adobe Production Premium CS4 has all the tools needed for the entire video workflow, from capture to final delivery. In this tutorial, we'll take a look at a sample workflow using these applications. On Location might be the first application you start with. On Location allows you to record to a laptop or external hard drive instead of tape, your camera's hard drive, expensive P2 cards, or other types of recording media. This not only saves capture time and money for recording media, but it also allows you to more accurately check footage and color correct your camera for video using the vector scope, waveform monitor, audio meters, and other tools. Adobe On Location CS4 is now for both Windows and Mac and has a completely redesigned interface that is consistent with other Adobe Production Premium applications. On Location also allows you, here in the bottom left of the shot list panel, to create a new shot placeholder or a new take placeholder. This way, you can create shots before, during, and after shooting. This ensures that you capture every shot in the shot list. The new metadata panel allows you to embed XMP metadata, which is additional information about a file, into video files captured in On Location. For example, if I open up Dublin Core, we'll see many details about the file itself, including the contributor, the creator, and a description of the file, among other things. This data will now be a part of this file throughout the workflow. It can be used to organize assets or to help you find missing media. Footage captured on location can be imported into Adobe Premiere Pro for editing. And now here we are in Adobe Premiere Pro, where you will do the bulk of your video editing. If you have a tapeless camera but do not capture footage from On Location, the new Media Browser in Premiere Pro can help. Often, tapeless cameras will create a complex folder structure with many folders and files. You can see an example of this here. In the P2 Insert Shots clip, we have a Contents folder and a text file. Inside the Contents folder, we have many other folders. In the Media Browser in Premiere Pro, this same folder only shows the usable clips. XMP metadata is also recognized by Premiere Pro. As I open up the Project panel, I could select any piece of information about my footage and hit the Tab key to cycle through additional metadata. Additional metadata can also be added with the new Speech Search feature. Speech Search searches through audio tracks with spoken dialogue, detects the words that were spoken, and then automatically adds that to the metadata of the file. In this case, I'm going to resize the project panel so I can see the source monitor. I'm going to select this clip, VO full trailer.wav. I'll next go to the metadata panel, and with the clip selected, I can select Transcribe. Once the speech has been transcribed, it appears as metadata at the bottom of the metadata panel in the speech transcript area. If a word was transcribed incorrectly, we can select it, hit the Return key or the Enter key on the PC, and type the correct word. We could also use the speech transcript area to navigate our files. I could select a word and hit the play button.
Promises turn to threats, and truth disappears into shadow.
I could also select certain words to see where they appear in the timecode. Adobe Premiere Pro also features great integration with Adobe After Effects, a program used for motion graphics, compositing, animation, and more. I'm going to resize my source monitor so I could see more of my program monitor. If I wanted this shot to be a special effects shot, I can simply right-click the clip and select Replace with After Effects Composition. This action automatically launches After Effects and brings the clip from Premiere Pro into an After Effects composition, dynamically linked to Premiere Pro. From here, I can add effects, motion graphics, or other features. As soon as I go back to Adobe Premiere Pro, I'll see that the footage updates to reflect my changes. Back in After Effects, we could also import Photoshop and Illustrator files. Layered Photoshop or Illustrator files can be imported as compositions. From this pop-up, I'm going to select OK. I can now go to the Project panel and double-click the composition that After Effects created for me upon import of the Photoshop file to see my Photoshop file. This particular Photoshop file contains 3D objects from Photoshop Extended, which can be manipulated and animated here in After Effects. Now let's go back to our project in Adobe Premiere Pro. From Premiere Pro, I can send audio to Soundbooth to edit or to create new audio. In this case, I'm going to use an ASND file. ASND files show up as stereo audio clips in Adobe Premiere Pro. but when it's sent back to Sound Booth, contains all of the original layers. So I'm going to right-click on this ASND file. And from the right-click menu, I'm going to select Edit in Adobe Sound Booth, Edit Source File. Here in Sound Booth, we see all of the layers that made up this initial ASND file. Here in Sound Booth, we can edit our audio. We can add effects. We can change the pitch and timing. We could also clean up our audio, removing audio anomalies such as pops, crackles, and hisses. Now in Sound Booth CS4, we can equalize the volume of multiple files so that they all have the same audio volume for consistency. When we're done with our edits in Sound Booth, simply save the file and our changes are reflected back in Premiere. Next, we're going to go over to Adobe Encore CS4. Adobe Encore is a program meant for authoring discs such as DVDs and Blu-ray discs. Encore can also output to Swift files as well. Encore can also use Dynamic Link to import sequences from Adobe Premiere Pro. To do this, go to the File menu, select Adobe Dynamic Link, Import Premiere Pro Sequence. On the left-hand side of this dialog box, navigate to an Adobe Premiere Pro project and click it once to select it. Once it's selected, all of its contents, including its sequences, will show up on the right-hand side. Select a sequence to import and click OK. This sequence now shows up in your project panel, as would a video that you imported into Encore. You can also use Dynamic Link from After Effects to bring in compositions to be used as motion menus. By using Dynamic Link, you can bypass intermediate rendering so that you only have to render for final output or for previews. The DVD menus in Encore are simply Photoshop files. I can select a menu in the project panel and then go to the Tools panel and click the Edit menu in Photoshop button to edit that menu in Photoshop. This will open the file here in Photoshop. And as you can see here in the Layers panel, there are layers which indicate which layers are buttons. We can make changes here, and once we save it, our changes are reflected back in Encore. When we've completed our project in Encore, we can go up to the Build panel to export. From the Format drop-down list, we can choose to output to DVD, high-definition Blu-ray disc, or Flash. Selecting Flash will create a web DVD or Flash version of a DVD without having to learn ActionScript or even going into Flash authoring. In Encore CS4, users have more control over video size, quality, and background. You can also stream the Flash export with the Flash Media Server. Note that you can output to any of these three formats regardless of how you initially set up your project. Next, we're going to take a brief look at Adobe Flash CS4. Adobe Flash CS4 is capable of powerful interactivity using a programming language called ActionScript. From After Effects, we can now output a project file format called .xfl, which Flash can understand. I'm going to select Open, navigate to the XFL file I outputted from After Effects, and select Open. The project I output from After Effects now comes into Flash with all of the effects and animation intact. From After Effects also, we could output my content to a mobile device using Device Central. To preview what my content will look like on a mobile device, I'm going to select a composition. I'm going to go next to the Composition menu at the top of the screen and select Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. And select OK to save my project. From here in the Adobe Media Coder, first I'm going to change the format to H.264. Next I'm going to change the preset. 3GPP is a standard for video on cell phones and mobile devices, so I'm going to select one of the 3GPP presets. From this dropdown, I'm also going to select Edit Export Settings. From this dialog, I can more accurately adjust my settings. I could also select Open in Device Central, which will open this content in Device Central for previewing on specific mobile devices once it's done rendering. I'm going to select OK here. I'm going to select Start Queue. Once it's done rendering, Adobe Device Central will open up, and you can preview your content on a mobile device. You can also initiate the entire process from here in Device Central. You can create an After Effects composition based on the specs of a particular mobile device by going to the File menu and selecting New Document in After Effects. Adobe Production Premium CS4 is a complete post-production suite that can take a production from planning through delivery using powerful, intuitive tools that make the creative process smooth and efficient.